Good morning again from Northwest Lower Michigan. And when I say Northwest Lower Michigan, I mean this little area here of the Lower Peninsula. It's just a unique area. The topography is quite different from the rest of the Lower Peninsula. It's very hilly, and there are huge sand bluffs, hundreds of feet high. I guess when the glaciers were receding and forming the Great Lakes, this is where they took a big dip. And if you go into the Northern Peninsula, you're into the mountains. So it's beautiful. It's very beautiful here. And I have ordered videotaping equipment, and I am waiting for tech support, and I'm hoping you'll bear with me as I become more professional and more proficient at making these videos. But I don't want to wait. I don't want to let too much time pass before I address some things that I think are quite pertinent right now. I'm going to give some shout outs in this hopefully short video and make some references because I want this to be resourceful. I want it to be useful and to be helpful to you. I'm going to try to provide links underneath this video if I can figure out how to do that. And if not, you'll just have to look them up yourself. I want to give a shout out to Little Zen Crone. She had a segment in the 2019 Tarot-a-thon that was about using the tarot to improve our mental health. And I want to speak about that a bit. The clickety-clackety you hear in the background, that is my dog's nails clacking on the wooden floors as they wander around. I mentioned in the live chat with Becca the other night, Becca Tarot Night Owl, that I almost lost one of my dogs recently. I have two elderly dogs. I have a Pembroke Welsh Corgi who is 15 or 16, and a miniature beagle who is close in age, maybe 12 or 13, 14 years old. I don't know their exact ages because they were rescue dogs. And so they're both getting quite elderly and having some health issues. And I woke up yesterday morning to find that my little Welsh Corgi, Harriet, was unable to move. And so I panicked, of course. First I carried her out to the lawn, and it was about 6 a.m. It was just daylight, and so I couldn't get a hold of the vet yet. And then right away I gave her a pain medication, in some soft food. And she did start to improve right away. So by the time we were able to see the vet, I thought it was time. I thought it was time to make that tough decision. And the vet encouraged me and said, no, I think we can buy her some more time with some pain medication, and she suspects she's having little seizures, and there are anti-seizure medications available. Those will shorten the length of her life, but if they improve the quality of her life, I'm all for it. And so we had blood work and got some injections, and she's doing much better today. I'm happy to report. They are my precious babies. All right. I want to talk about a comment I made in one of my previous videos. I'm concerned about the repercussions of it. I said that tarot is therapy in a box, and it is therapy in a box. I, however, do not want to discount or discourage anyone from engaging in one-on-one therapy whenever and wherever they are able. And I use the analogy that last winter I slipped and fell and I broke my wrist, this wrist. And, I did not look at it and go, oh, whoops, I broke my wrist, or I did something bad. This looks bad. and then carry on with my life using only one hand and arm. I hightailed it down to the local ER and got a x-ray and found out I needed a cast. Why would you take proper care of your physical body and not take proper care of your mental health also? And that's what therapy does for us. What I meant by the comment that the Tarot is therapy in a box is that therapy is not always available. I have had the great good fortune of having some fantastic therapists, and I have engaged in therapy on and off all throughout my adult life. I talk in one of the videos about how I was given a deck of tarot cards at the age of 15, but I didn't know what to do with them or how to use them or what they were. I was also given the gift of therapy when I was in high school. A friend in school learned that I was suffering from stomach ulcers, and that my doctor, our family physician, had said to me, if you can't learn to stop worrying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to help you. And my friend said to me, well, why don't you go and see my older sister? She's a counselor. And so I did, and I found it to be very valuable. That was when I began to look at there's something behind the manifestation of stomach ulcers and the bad habit of worry. I am from a dysfunctional family. I've always tried to take care of everybody. That's been my role as the oldest of 5 children. And perhaps now as I enter into adulthood, I had better learn how to have some other resources to draw on so that I'm not making myself ill. I'm here to tell you, if I have nothing else to share with the Tarot community except a little bit of wisdom that has come hard-earned with age, it's that you can't treat the physical and not the mental simultaneously, at least not effectively, because you're a whole person, you're a whole being. So whatever and whenever and wherever you are able to engage in one-on-one interaction with a professional therapist, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it in hard times, and I highly recommend it in the best of times. And that's something I want to build on a little bit as we go forward and explore what the gifts and the resources are of the Tarot. I want to expand on the idea that we grow through the worst of times because we're forced to. But let's utilize the best of times as well, when we are physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, and spiritually stable. Let's utilize those times for our own personal growth. There is a fantastic TED Talk, in my opinion, the best TED Talk ever. Carolyn McHugh, The Art of Being Yourself. Please watch it. Okay. I also agree with Little Zen Crone that this book was life-changing, 78 Degrees of Wisdom. That helps deepen your understanding of the Tarot and how you might be able to use it to help better have insight into your own mental health and how to improve that on an ongoing basis. And again, I'll try to get into a little bit more detail with that in my future videos. The Tarot is just, it's a perfect system. It's a perfect system. And I have said that some consciousness far greater than my own invented this system. And so I just want to say, I don't really care why it works. I don't really give a shit why it works. Again, if you don't get anything else from me, let me offer 5 decades of reading the Tarot cards and tell you that if you do not yet know it, it works. It works beautifully. It works efficiently. It works every time. It does not work some of the time or for some of the people. It works all of the time for everyone. And so to the best of our ability to learn and understand this system, we are creating a resource that helps to strengthen us in every aspect of our life. And why wouldn't you participate in that? Especially when it comes in a little box. This is the tarot I use most of the time for my readings. I learned with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. I love the Rider-Waite-Smith system. I have no reason to go beyond the Rider-Waite system. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. That said, there's nothing wrong with the other types of cards and systems. I just love the Rider-Waite-Smith, and it's always worked for me. I want to turn this video into a resource because that is always my goal with every tarot card reading that I do, whether I'm pulling a daily card for myself or whether I'm reading for someone else. The goal is always health. How can I improve my health, my physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial health? And is my behavior consistent with that goal? When I read for someone else, I write at the same time. There's something about, I'm an artist and a writer, and there's something about that motion that activates some process in the brain, and it's just very useful for me. One of the first things I do is I just take a piece of paper and I put my name and some contact at the top of the paper. My name and my telephone number, or my name and my email address, whatever it is. Some way that that person can get a hold of me after the reading is over. In the event that we didn't record it, didn't photograph it, or they don't receive the text or the email, something goes wrong with the technology, because I'm not very adept at it, as we've established. They have a piece of paper that also gives them something they can walk out the door with right away. They have a way to contact me if they have further questions. The other thing I write on the top of the piece of paper is the date and their name. And I'm going to tell you, as a tarot card reader, that's just a little trick for me. If I'm in the middle of the reading and I can't remember their name, I just glance down at the paper. I mean, I'm sorry to admit that, but I really am a simple person, and I just really want things to work, and I want them to help. And so I want every reading to be personal. I want the person to leave feeling empowered. That's always my goal. I scribble down on the paper. I write down the cards that we draw and maybe a few key words underneath them as I'm speaking. Things that we talk about in the reading. I ask them at the beginning of the reading to put their feet flat on the floor and to take 3 deep breaths with me. Or maybe we'll take 5, maybe we'll take 10 if that person seems to be really anxious. That is called, in neuro-linguistic programming terms, that is called mirroring physiology. If you will mirror the physiology of the person you are sitting with, you will automatically tap into their energy. And therefore, while I'm doing that, I'm holding or I'm shuffling the cards myself. I have asked them to set an intention for this reading, or what is their goal? What is your goal for this reading? How can we improve your well-being? How can we help to empower you through with the few minutes that we have here? Let's make the best use of it. So I am setting my intention, which to me is the same thing as saying a prayer. I'm holding the cards, I'm shuffling the cards. My intention is that I am an empty vessel, if you will, that can be used to speak to them and say exactly the words they need to hear right now, right here, today. What's going to help them moving forward from today. And then I hand them the cards. And when I have said this to my students, my first-time students in a class, they're aghast because they've read, "Don't let people touch your tarot cards." Well, again, through the wisdom of experience or age, when I first got these cards, I didn't know what they were. I'd never heard the word tarot. I didn't have a book. I didn't have any resources to learn from. I learned by experimenting, by picking a card every day, putting it in my backpack or my pocket, and going off to school. And so I made up my own rules. I made up my own rules about how these work. And who made up your rules about how the tarot works? I have an expectation. If I'm going to interact with this process, this system, it has to be right on every single time. It has to work whether I'm dealing the cards out or you're dealing the cards out. Pardon me. It has to work whether you want to be, pardon me, whether you want to tell me what's going on with your life or you don't want to tell me. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I don't need to know what your question is. The cards know. It's between you and the cards. I'm going to give you an example of that in a minute. I also require that they give me the next best step. Every time someone comes for a tarot card reading, they're going to leave with homework. It can be really simple, but it's some sort of a resource, a contact, or an action. I want to turn what I see in the tarot cards for you today, I want to turn that into something you can do, into an action. And the reason for that is, you may leave this reading and remember parts of it, or all of it. It may have been helpful. You may have thought it was a big waste of time and money. But I know that the information that we covered, and we cover a lot of information in a short period of time, that's going to assimilate here in the brain as you move through the next few hours, days, weeks, whatever. But it's not going to be helpful if you don't know what to do next. And all you need is the next step. Sometimes the client's stomach growls, and we talk about how they're hungry, and they're going to lunch right after this reading. And where are you going, and what are you going to have? And they, maybe their homework is treat yourself to dessert. Maybe it's that simple. Maybe it's a book I want them to get from their local library. Maybe it's a video that I want them to watch. Maybe it's your video I want them to watch. Maybe it's Carolyn McHugh's video about the art of being yourself. Maybe it's Little Zen Crone's video about how to use the tarot to improve your mental health. Whatever it is, I don't care if it's, eat a hot dog with everything on it. It's just something. It's just something you walk out with a piece of paper in your hand and something to do. Because that's going to lead you forward into this whole process that the tarot just created for us. And I want to talk a little bit about why that's important and why it is important that the person leave feeling empowered, and how I can make sure that they always leave feeling empowered. I've done a couple of readings recently for two people who drew the same card, the first card they drew. You see patterns, of course, as you know. One of those persons I read for was a friend who has quite a bit of knowledge and background about the tarot, and the other person was a first-time client who walked into the bookstore where I read one day a week and had never seen tarot cards before, didn't know what they were, and had never held them. They both drew the same first card, and I'm going to tell you why that's significant, and then we're going to talk about that card, which happens to be the Devil card. Because I don't care if you're going to draw 3 cards and do a 15-minute reading at the psychic fair, or if you're going to lay out a 10 or 12 card spread, maybe a Celtic cross, maybe a spread you invented. The first card always represents the truth of what is going on internally for that person today. It's the truth. And I say this again, the cards work 100% of the time for 100% of the people. I'm not going to question them. I don't know why they work. I don't know how they work. I don't care. I know they work. The first card that person is going to draw always represents the truth of what is going on at the moment, right here, right now. Even if they don't know it, or they don't have the cognizant explanation of it yet, because they're in the middle of the experience, it's the truth of what's going on right here, right now. That's why I don't need them to tell me what their question is or what their intention or goal is for the reading. The minute they hand me the first card they drew out of the deck, I know exactly what's going on. Both these people drew the Devil, and they both kind of were taken aback. The Devil is never scary. The Tarot is never scary. There are what I call 5 transformation cards. The Devil, Death, Judgment, the Tower, and Hanged Man. And I call them the transformation cards because if you draw one of those cards, you are in the midst of some kind of a life change that is going to be transformational. You're not going to come out the other side of this experience being the same person. And it's bigger than you. It's a major arcana card, it's a God card, it's a cosmic card. I don't care what you want to call it. It's bigger than you. In other words, you didn't consciously choose it. You didn't choose to enter into this circumstance because it's hard. And we don't enter into hardships, on purpose, knowingly, and by choice. We enter into difficult times kicking and screaming. And we find ourselves in the middle of them, and we come to see the tarot card reader because we will do anything and everything to help us deal with this challenge. So they draw the Devil card. I know they're in the middle of some big challenge that they did not choose. And the first thing out of my mouth is, congratulations, that's a great card. That's one of my favorite cards in the deck, and it's true. Because you don't draw one of the 5 transformation cards when you're going into that experience, that challenge, that difficult stage of life. once again, it's a setup. It's a spiritual setup. Every upset is a setup. Our soul or our spirit set that situation up for our personal growth. And we didn't enter it knowingly. We find ourselves in the midst of it. We were not given a heads up because we would have run for the hills. So if you draw one of those 5 transformation cards, you're on your way out of that difficulty. You're on your way out of it. It's being resolved as we speak. And I am never going to end a reading on a transformational card or a card that speaks of difficulties. I am always going to draw another card and another card until we get to an action. Homework. What can I write down on that piece of paper that that client can leave with and feel empowered by? How do we get to, okay, I can take a breath. I can deal with this. I have resources. How do we get there? The Tarot will never leave us in the middle of difficulties and challenges and not help us figure out the next step so that we can walk into our own personal power. Now, each one of those 5 transformation cards tells me a little something different and specific about the period of time that this client is going through, about what the difficulties might be. If they drew the Hanged Man, the problem is that they're not using their voice and their God-given talents to help them get out of survival mode. But that's another story for another day. If they draw the Devil, I know for a fact they've got themselves chained in, boxed in, constricted, because they have gone into this situation with a particular agenda of how it was going to play out, and it's not working. And they have tried everything. If you draw a transformation card, you're exhausted. They've tried everything they know how to have this work out. They have become more and more and more invested. They're invested mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually. They're invested in this outcome, this certain outcome. They've made a deal with the devil. It ain't going to work. They came to see the tarot card reader, and the tarot card reader has the responsibility to tell them, this is not going to turn out the way you wanted it to. You came into it with the very best of intentions, and you have done everything in your power to make it work. And it's not working. Where do you go from here? Where do you go from here? It's not going to work out the way that you wanted it to, or the way that you thought that you wanted it to. That doesn't mean it's not going to work out. That means we got to take a step back and regroup, because it's going to change, it's going to shift, it's going to be resolved, but it may not look like what you have invested in it looking like. And so the devil, different from the other 4 transformation cards, is going to tell me that I have to check my agenda. I have to look at the why. Why did I want it so bad? Why did I want it to work out just that way? Why did I need it to look like that, a certain way, in a certain time period? And how can I look at it differently so that I can help all of us involved who are chained to this outcome? Addicted, it's the card of addiction, who are addicted to this outcome. work through this difficult period and come out empowered and feeling like things actually resolved themselves better than I could have imagined. In order to do that, I'm going to have to do a little letting go. I'm going to have to do a little letting go of it working out just exactly the way I thought it should. And lo and behold, the Tarot is there to say, guess what? You're not the wisest person in the situation. And guess what? The good news is you don't have to be the wisest person in the situation. It's not all riding on your shoulders. It's bigger than you. Draw another card. And we keep drawing another card until we get to that point where there is some sense of resolution, of a light at the end of that tunnel, of a way out of this transformation that actually can work. And I think I'm going to leave it there because I like shorter videos. I want to say thank you to Becca at Tarot Night Owl for her wisdom. I want to say thank you to Little Zen Crone for her wisdom, especially in the video of the live 2019 Tarot-thon segment about using the Tarot to improve your mental health. There are so many more resources I want to touch on, but check those out for now. Check out Carolyn McCoff's video on TED Talk, The Art of Being Yourself. And thanks for watching, and please come back again.